if you think that the X-Men timeline is fucked up, this is a strong contender. Just hello, brothers and sisters. My name is Daidarius, and welcome to the review of Bumblebee, or as Shia LaBeouf will say, Bumblebee! So, Bumblebee is the first standalone movie of a Transformer. I think there's more on the way, but I don't really know. But anyways, Bumblebee starts out that Bumblebee himself crash lands on Earth because he needs to wait there and set up a base so the other Autobots can come there and set up some kind of resistance against Megatron and his Decepticons oppression. And it's a whole thing. We also meet Charlie, who is an 18-year-old girl who wants to build a car so she can drive off because she has a shitty life. I mean, she has a mother who loves her and just trying to make her smile and have a lovely life. She has a little brother who is kind of a nuisance but just want her to have smile and have a lovely life filled with happiness. And she has a stepdad who yet again wants to fill her life with love. So she's not in a good place. No, she's I mean, that kind of life, who wants that? But she is kind of depressed because she lost her dad from some time ago. We don't know how long it's been, but it doesn't even matter. She is still not over his death, and she wants a car so she can escape this place where she just feels like that she's dragging her family down with her. So she ends up finding the Bumblebee car. She gets back to life. Bumblebee transforms in front of her, and then these two become friends and now need to connect. And they need to find out where Bumblebee comes from because he has an amnesia, and that's explained early on in the movie. It also explains why he can't speak. And in the meantime, the military witnessed that Bumblebee crash landed on Earth, so they are now tracking him down because they think he might be a villain. And then some Decepticons come and stuff happens. So that's pretty much the plot of the movie. Is we need Charlie to connect with Bumblebee, find out what his past is and what his lost memory is, and then in the meantime the military is trying to tracking her, and most importantly, Bumblebee down. So that's the movie. So what did I like about this movie? Well, the acting was decent. I mean, it was nothing extraordinary. It was just decent. Sometimes it was even great, I will say. But most importantly, our main character and her sidekick felt genuine. There was no of this awkward, forced in your face Michael Bay humor that always just dehumanizes the characters and just makes them laughing stocks and nothing else than a comedic relief. Whereas here they felt like humans with issues. They felt like humans that was trying for something and failed at it. Which really helps you connect with these characters, because this is pretty much the only thing that the movie has going for it. That and Bumblebee. Which is another thing I liked about this movie, is the focus on Bumblebee. The movie is called Bumblebee, so I was kind of fearing that we were going the same approach as the old Transformers movies where, you know, the movie's called Transformers, but you don't really focus on the Transformers, you focus on the humans, and shouldn't it just be called Humans with Transformers? I mean, that's pretty much the movies. So I was kind of fearing that since the movie was called Bumblebee, we will not focus on Bumblebee, but we'll focus on Charlie. And yes, we do focus more on Charlie, we do Bumblebee, but Bumblebee takes up a huge portion of this movie. He takes the focus, he takes the center stage in the first 20 minutes, 15 minutes, I think. Yeah, 15 minutes. He is the main protagonist, not antagonist. He's not the villain in this movie. He is the hero. And just the way they convey Bumblebee is just genuine, because you really feel for the guy, especially considering that he's just landed on a planet he doesn't know. He just came from a war-torn Cybertron. You start off in Cybertron, or not in, on Cybertron. That's the scenery on Cybertron is just taken straight out of the Cybertron games. There came 2 Cybertron games. I can't really remember what they were called. It was something like War for Cybertron and something else. It is taken straight out of that. It's also kind of a bummer because it does really look like a video game there, but I will save that for later on. But he crashes on this planet, and immediately after he lands on this planet, he is attacked by Decepticons and humans, because the humans, of course, fear a fucking giant robot just approaching Earth, smashing down and walking around. We don't know what it is, so just kill it, I guess. Kill it! And then after Bumblebee, he loses his memory. He becomes more afraid, but also more pure. And that's really how you can describe Bumblebee in this movie, is pure, because he is extremely curious, but also he's easily scared. And I don't mean like he's too afraid to go into battle with the Decepticons, but it just, any time that he does something that Charlie considers wrong and she kind of snaps at him, but she didn't really mean to snap that hard at him, he just reacts by going into the corner and putting his arm up in the defensive position. You just feel for the guy. I mean, just look at him with the big blue eyes. What was I talking about again? And also the relationship between Charlie and Mimo, her sidekick or something. The love interest that's not really a love interest. It's a one-sided thing, but nonetheless. He actually worked as the comic relief in this movie, but in a genuine, real way. Which means that I like the comedy that was presented in this movie. It made me laugh. It didn't feel forced, it felt genuine. And considering that the main character is a badass girl who knows how to make vehicles and repair them, and I really don't. It's just the icing on the cake, really. Also, in some scenarios, the visual effects are extremely well done, especially between Charlie and Bumblebee. Sometimes you can really see that Bumblebee is CGI and put artificially into the scene. It feels like that he is present in the scene. And most importantly, what I like about this movie is the heart. If there's nothing else going for it, then the hard part is, because this movie really drives home the relationship between Charlie and Bumblebee, and it's doing it with heart, with genuine heart. I mean, you feel for them, you really buy into their relationship. It works. And yes, this movie does have shortcomings, but I gotta say, the hard part, they really nailed it there. I think that's kind of what I was missing from the other Transformers movie, is it doesn't really feel like it has heart. Well, this one, damn. But that's pretty much what I liked about this movie. So what didn't I like about this movie? Well, lots actually. First off, John Cena. And I don't mean to shit on John Cena. I don't think he was bad in this movie. I just think his character was badly handled in this movie. And not necessarily about him. John Cena's character's introduction into this movie, you feel like he is a real person with a good sense of humor, and it doesn't come off as a cliche villain or something like that. But then he takes a turn and becomes the cliche villain thing until he doesn't need to be that anymore. His character flip-flops too much, and considering the fact that the foundation, the introduction was that strong, just completely ruins his character. And then there's the whole father is dead thing put into the movie. I understand why, because it really gives a reason for her to connect with Bumblebee, but I just think that the whole that is dead thing is just not handled that well. It is brought up a few times throughout the movie, and when it is brought up, it is really brought up and it is smudged into your face, and you just forced to sit there and just take it. It's never woven naturally into the scenes, which means that we get the payoff for that is dead scene where she breaks down and gets, comfort by Bumblebee. No, that's not a spoiler, by the way. It doesn't really hit home. It just feels like, yeah, okay. And that was not what they're going for. This was their Pixar moment. This is where they wanted you to break down and just bawl your eyes out. But no, it's just, yeah, okay. Which really sucks for me, and a lot of the movie's emotions just end up in that. I don't know if they did that just to make the relationship between Charlie and Bumblebee more efficient comparing to the rest of the movie. I have no idea, but it is really an eyesore throughout the movie when a lot of these things are played up to be emotional, but they're just handled so poorly that it just feels like filler. Then you have the villains. There's a few Decepticons in this movie. I don't know why it is that hard to make some interesting Decepticon villains. I mean, they do it in the comics, they do it in the cartoons. Why can't you do it in the live action movie? It is not that hard. Just write an interesting villain that just happens to be a 6-meter tall robot. That's all you gotta do. But no, the villains is just there just so they can move the plot along, because otherwise you would just be stuck between Charlie and Bumblebee doing stuff. Which also brings me to the plot. The plot is extremely forgettable. And the reason is that movies use so much time to focus on Charlie's and Bumblebee's relationship. Have you noticed how many times I've brought that up in this review? Yeah, it's because this movie focuses on it a lot. And again, I understand why, but that just means that when you get to the Decepticon villain part, it just feels tacked on. It feels like they just forced it into the movie so we can have some funny action scenes, some entertaining action scenes at the end, so something will happen. But when you consider that the introduction of this movie and the ending of this movie is the only part where action is happening, then it doesn't really fit. Which brings me back to the introduction of this movie. A lot of times the CGI in this movie does feel like it's in a cinematic for a video game. That could be a plus, except that this is supposed to be, you know, live action, so it needs to feel real, but it doesn't. A lot of the times it just feels like you're playing a game, except you're not playing a game. And this is just a personal gripe with me, and this is a nitpick. It is not a fault of this movie, it's not a flaw of this movie, but I don't really like the design of the Transformers in this movie. Now I know where they came from. They went with the old 80s look that a lot of us grew up with and love. However, there's a reason it is so similar in design in those old cartoons. It is pretty fucking hard to animate a walking robot, especially if there's a lot of details. I like the new addition from the Michael Bay's earlier movies where you can still see what was going on with the robot, especially in the Dark Side of the Moon. In that movie, they made the Transformers very colorful, so it was easier to distinguish between the Autobots and the Decepticons when they were fighting. And in this movie, it's extremely easy to notice which robot is which when they're fighting and jumping around and throwing each other through walls. I will give props for that. However, the transformations of the robots, and especially just the look of the robots, or it's actually just the look of the Autobots, in fact, was too simplistic. So I think if they just chose a middle ground between what they did in this movie and what they have done in the Michael Bay Transformers movies, then you have a decent Transformer looking Transformer. But now I think about it, I did like the Decepticons more because there were a lot more details on them, but they didn't take away that there were some humanoid robots, so you can still see the facial expressions, you can still see where the limbs were attached, but when they were transforming there was a lot more moving parts going on. But then again, this is just a nitpick, this is just a personal pet peeve, so it doesn't bring the movie down that much, it's just something that I noticed. So what do we end up with? Well, you have a movie that doesn't really have that much plot going for it. It doesn't really have that interesting of a story. It doesn't have that best climactic ending. But it does handle its source material well, especially the ending, if you can call it that. After the climax, when you get to the epilogue of the movie, it does handle that part well. And then there's also the fact that what this movie has going for it is the relationship between Charlie and Bumblebee. That's number what? I said it a lot. But also the relationship between Mimo and Charlie. And this will be the one thing that I remember for this movie is the relationship between these characters, because this is what works with this movie, especially Bumblebee. Bumblebee just steals the show completely. You will fall for him. It's Bumblebee, man. Oh, and on a side note, another gripe that I have, and the timeline is getting more fucked up in this movie than it was before, because now it really contradicts itself. You remember in the last, I think it was last night, it was stated that Bumblebee was with the humans and helping the Alliance, or the Allied, not Alliance, that's some World of Warcraft shit, was helping the Allied against Nazi Germany back in World War II. But here we find out that he crash lands, but then he does something at the end of the movie that kind of ties in to the first Transformer movie in the Bay franchise. And the crazy thing is, just a few scenes before that happens, it contradicts itself again with the first Transformers movie. But I can't really talk about it because it's kind of spoiler when you're watching the story, so just don't think about it. Just don't think about the timeline at all. So I don't know if this is a soft reboot or if it's a complete reboot or if it's a spin-off. But nevertheless, I will say that Bumblebee, you should watch it in cinema, entertainment guaranteed. That was a pretty decent start of the year. I mean, the Americans got this movie last year, so you're a bit behind. But I'm considering this as a 2019 movie because this is the year that my country got it, so yay! Have you seen Bumblebee? What did you think about it, and how do you think it ranked in the Transformers series franchise thingy? Probably near the top, if I'm guessing correctly. But whatever you think, comment below and read your thoughts. And that's all, until I see you in the next video. Remember to stay awesome! Bye! Transformers, robots in disguise.